Muscle Fury. So, what we're here to talk about today. We usually do these lists. I don't even know how much we're gonna have. We have different numbers.
Yeah.
We talked about it last week. So, yeah. Our top favorite comedians. So, I have my list. Kyle has his list. There's 3 comedians that we're gonna save for
The end.
yeah, at the end. I don't
Very
even
last video.
I don't even know how long it's gonna be. If it's 2 parts, it's 2 parts. If it's not, it's not. Who knows? But
Depending on how chance we go on about the people we picked and
yeah. So
my first one is gonna be a guy that I've liked for quite a while. He's probably one of my all-time favorite comedians. Got his start on a TV show in the early 90s, and just one of those guys that doesn't seem to matter what role he portrays or what character he has, he always kills it. Jim Carrey.
yeah, Jim Carrey is another favorite of mine too, actually. Not on the list, obviously, of mine, but yeah, I've been following him since In Living Color.
Yes.
You know, if I was allowed to watch it.
Yeah, exactly.
But you know, then he got Ace Ventura, Pet Detective, Dumb and Dumber,
The Mask.
When Nature Calls, The Mask. You know, a lot of cool shit that this guy did. And not only that, but being a serious actor as well.
Yes. He's always done the comedy stuff really well. Whether it be like The Mask or Ace Ventura or In Living Color or any other movie of that. He's always done it very well, but I think he does it so well because it's natural to him. But these more serious kind of dramatic roles, if you will, he's done fairly well at as well. And it's one of those things where, because you see so much of him in comedies, that when you see him do a serious role, it's like, huh,
Yeah.
that's different. I mean, there have been several, well, maybe not several, there's been a few comedians that have dabbled in the dramatic movies or TV shows, whatever, but yeah, Jim Carrey's one of those guys that you just enjoy so much.
Yeah. So, and keeping with the whole stand-up comedy, yeah, you know, that's where I got his start. I'm doing Johnny Carson, Jay Leno, doing a lot of those, getting his start. And the guy is very much one of the best top impressionists.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
You know,
He can do anybody.
yeah, you know, he's done Henry Fonda, Sammy Davis Jr., oddly enough.
Yeah.
Does this impression of a Rottweiler that, I don't know, St. Bernard.
Yeah.
That was interesting. But yeah, a guy that's always been on, you know, he's made a comeback, actually doing a lot more. I think, I can't remember the name of the show, but it's you know, kind of interesting.
Yeah.
I'll find it later. But yeah,
Yeah.
you know, losing his parents, you know, as a kid, living in his car,
Oh, yeah, like
you know,
living on his own and
yeah,
having to do what he can to get by.
writing letters as a child to Carol Burnett.
Right.
To me, that's a good start. And it was actually a Carol Burnett special where they had a lot of celebrities, and Jim Carrey, oddly enough, appeared on the show and told her that story.
Not to mention also the fact that he is a Canadian boy as well.
Yeah, New Market, Ontario. You know, and that's pretty cool. It's cool to see a Canadian singer, comedian, actor, whatever, make it on his own and become such a success. You know, you never really would have known back then that this guy from A Living Color was gonna blossom into the biggest actor of all time.
No, without a question.
I mean, he did stuff in the 80s too, but The Living Color is basically what he's well known for. So, for me, the first one, since we're going with the Canadian theme, this guy is basically one of the reasons why I am who I am. It's kind of a very odd sense of humor. Odd,
Out there, dirty, sick, twisted.
Yeah, you could say that. Has OCD, Howie Mandel.
Ah, yes.
And I'm like, yeah, I've heard a lot of things about him, but, you know, here's a guy, too, that did his comedy in the early 80s.
Mm-hmm.
He did a show called St. Elsewhere, where it was a serious TV show. He played a doctor on it. He's also done animation in Bobby's World.
Yes.
You know, he does voices, but he, you know, he did a show in the early 90s that had, you know, Clarence Clemens and Lita Ford back up for singers, and it was like a variety show. And that was pretty cool, and I think that's where Bobby's World, his character, kind of showed up in the show. But I think, again, a lot of his comic work is pretty cool.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And yeah, it's basically my kind of humor, you know. There was one particular where he was on Just for Laughs.
Oh, yeah.
And he's like, yeah, my wife calls me and he says, guess where I am? And I'm like, what are you, Walter? Like, are you at the church? And it's like, I'm at the vet. And I'm thinking, I have a dog. Well, you know, is the dog okay? No, we got a rat. Because we bought a rat earlier. We got a $6 fucking rat. And it's in the vet. Okay, well, the guy, my wife goes, the vet says the rat has cancer. And we should have known. I mean, we should have known that the rat was gonna have cancer because my kids called him Lumpy. But, you know, so we took him to the vet and we paid for the operation. And the kids were fucking afraid of him. That's a short end of a joke, but
Foul!
it's, I really laughed my ass off when I first saw that, because it's one of those things you don't expect.
I remember one. This is another Just for Last one. This was probably a few years before, a few years after, whatever it was. And he's going through his bit, and then at one point he goes, "Hey, everybody, you want to hear something really weird? My dick can talk." I mean, but lowers the mic stand to his crotch. He's like, "You gotta be really quiet, otherwise it's not gonna do it." And it's like, wow, fucking Howie Mandel, man.
Yeah, and, you know, he's done a lot of other shows. Obviously now he's on America's Got Talent, which I think is fucking ironic. Hey, America's Got Talent, we got a Brit, a German, a Canadian, and a Brit, you know.
Yeah. 2 Brits, a German, and a Canadian.
That's right, yeah. It's crazy, but he's also done Deal or No Deal.
Yes.
He's done a lot of other interesting movies. But yeah, he's always going to be one of my favorite stand-up comics. And I'm not really sure what he's done for that, but
Yeah.
you know, there it is.
Okay, let's go this way. A guy that did comedy, let's see, probably 80s, fairly young, or fairly early on, and there is one particular stand-up comedy routine that he did that is probably one of the most remembered and talked about, and he's done several movies. Really funny guy, really out there as far as like his personality, but still really cool guy. Eddie Murphy.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you know, I can't remember where I saw him when I first heard of him, and like it's kind of hard to think about it. I might have, by a small chance, maybe Police Academy. I mean, that's I think where everybody might have started to watch them, but I don't really remember. I do remember.
I don't think my Eddie Murphy was in Police Academy.
Yeah.
You mean the guy that did all like the sound effects and that?
No, that's Michael Winslow.
Yeah.
No, Eddie Murphy was, unless I'm thinking about Beverly Hills Cop. I don't know. Anyways, you can look that up.
Yeah.
So,
Foul!
anyways, yeah, the guy got his start on Saturday Night Live
Yes.
in the early 80s, the youngest member at the time. And
Yeah, there's a show.
you got him doing, Gumby and James Brown
Hell yeah.
and Buckwheat and, just stuff like that. But
Very interesting characters.
and
Well, James Brown is kind of his impression of James, but Gumby and
he also got Mr. Robinson's Neighborhood and a bunch of other cool shit that he did. But he's also, like, in his movies, I don't really see him do a lot of bad, like, language stuff. You watch...
No, he doesn't really ever swear. He just...
Not really. You watch his stand-up, though, and it's like, fuck, and all this other shit that he does.
I think what it is his stand-up comedy is like for mainly adults.
Yeah.
The movies he's done have been geared to more towards like kids, because like Shrek, Daddy Daycare.
Oh, then I guess I'm gonna tell you about Vampire in Brooklyn then.
Well, yeah, but
It was also Showtime with Robert De Niro
yeah,
and all that kind of stuff too. I think it's he's one of those guys that really was one of the better comedians, black comedians of his time. Because you have Richard Pryor, and then you have Eddie Murphy, who also, I don't know if he was as dirty, but, he was an interesting person, that's for sure.
Richard Pryor took comedy to the next level as far as pushing the boundaries of being I guess you say a dirty comic without being like overly offensive.
Yeah. But no, I mean, Eddie Murphy definitely is up there, and I'm not sure when his last stand-up special is. Unfortunately, we lost his brother Charlie a year or so ago, which didn't really know anything about him until watching the Chappelle Show, unfortunately. But
Yeah.
anyways,
And I would just one thing quickly. I would have to say his voice work as Donkey in the movie Shrek is probably one of my favorites. He just does it so well.
yes.
You want to love her? Yes. You want to please her? Yes. Then you got to try a little tenderness.
Oh, yeah, Dr. Doolittle.
Oh yeah, there's another
That's, yeah. It's, yeah. He is something.
one. Certainly is.
So while we were talking about comedians, I might as well talk about this guy. About well, 15 years anyway. I was a big fan of his. Still am. I mean, I haven't seen his latest comedy special, but again, started watching him when he appeared on Just for Laughs. Well, actually, further than that, Comedy at Club 54.
Ooh.
And yeah, and all we have to go is somebody gonna get hurt real bad tonight. Russell Peters.
Oh yeah.
What a guy. You know, Brampton, Ontario's own, moving to Los Angeles, which, yeah, he's had a lot of, talk about that and how America seems to give you more, which, okay, whatever. But, yeah, he's one of those guys that definitely talks about his heritage, but he also talks about other things.
Oh yeah.
Racism and people with mental disabilities and people, whatever. He doesn't leave anything off topic. No. And, does a whole bit of when he went to the Pacific Mall, which I guess is in Toronto. It's just a mall for, like, East Asian markets or whatever, and talking about trying to buy something and how the Chinese are cheap or whatever.
Yeah.
This guy was trying to rip him off. 35, 50. But
it's like, you're trying to barter with the people that invented bartering?
Yeah. But a lot of, it's really funny, and you laugh at, I don't know, you laugh at racism, but I don't know, it's just, I don't know how to put that, but he's just funny, that's it. Someone that can crack me up, I think that's a good comedian.
Yes.
Somebody that can crack you up.
I believe Russell Peters and various other comics can use racism and talking about people with special needs and other problems with the world or whatever in their routines and make it very funny without making it overly racist and making it offensive.
Right.
Like, put it out there, use it and make it funny and talk about it without having people upset about it or bothered by it or, wanting to, making them hate the person, whoever it is.
Yeah. Yeah, he's done a lot, and now that he's got a daughter, he talks about her quite a bit.
Yes.
In his act. He's still raunchy as ever. But he had a TV show last year, and it was kind of set in Toronto in India. And I guess that shit got canceled, unfortunately, but yeah. That was, interesting. He wrote a book a couple years ago. It was an interesting book talking about his life for his parents coming over and from India, and they were a few years apart from each other.
Yeah.
And then, talking about him and his brother, and then that goes from his comedy days, and then his dad passing away in 2004. And it's kind of, it's an interesting book, and, a lot of them are interesting. But, yeah, Russell Peters is awesome.
Well, I guess staying on the topic of Canadian comedy, how about we go to a guy that is another one of my all-time favorites, along with Jim Carrey. He's a guy that can do impressions. He can do anything funny. He has come up with so many different characters and can just make you go, wow, he's really good at what he does. And another one of those guys that comedy seems to be just so natural for him. Mike Myers.
Oh, yeah. Now, we talked about it earlier. I have to look up to see if he's done stand up. I don't know. I know he's. Well, yeah, I know that he was on Saturday Night Live
Right.
and doing Wayne's World and all that stuff. But again, another one of my favorites. I've really enjoyed him on Saturday Night Live, and then he's even done British TV shows. He's Austin Powers. You can't really mention anything about Mike Myers without mentioning that.
Yes.
You talked about Shrek. He's definitely done it. You know, he's the voice of Shrek.
Yes.
You know, and here's an interesting thing for you. Chris Farley was supposed to do the voice of Shrek.
Then he.
And then he died, unfortunately. And there's actually stuff out there, audio, that you can listen to, apparently. But, yeah.
Well, I'm sure Chris Farley would have done an amazing track.
Yeah, but he wouldn't have been Scottish, I think.
Nah, either way.
Either way, yeah. But, I mean, Mike Myers has done it all, and I think that being one of my favorite actors as well. And also, you get a lot of these actors from Canada, and they go to the US, and they don't really talk too much about their Canadian roots, I guess.
Yeah.
You look at Mike Myers, and he seems to be always with the Toronto Maple Leafs, being from Scarborough, and he's doing stuff for Sick Kids Hospital in Toronto,
Yeah.
which is still, you know, it has a special place in my heart. But he's also, you know, on about, I don't know, he's always talking about Canada, ever.
Yes. I believe, even though a lot of Canadian comics that have gone to the US to be successful and do movies and stand-up comedy routines and whatever, may not really talk about Canada a whole lot, but they're not going to forget where they came from. Not by a long shot.
No.
I mean, if Mike Myers will take time out of his schedule, get loaded busy, to go to Sick Kids and, you know, spend time with cancer patients or whatever, that just goes to show the kind of dude he is.
Yeah.
Even, yeah, he's a Canadian boy, but he'll do stuff like that. Not really, well, yeah, not really because he has to, but because he wants to. And that's good publicity, but also just shows you the kind of character he has.
Yeah, for sure. So anyhow, let's move on from that to a comedian that I started. Well, everybody knows him when you sing the asshole song. And he's been in a lot of. He's definitely been behind the scenes as a director, but being famous for chain smoking on stage, doing stand-up comedy since the 80s. Well, Dennis Leary. And it's kind of, you know, interesting, his views on life. And
Yeah.
there's one special that I really enjoyed watching. He did in 98 when he was talking about. I did a whole bit on coffee and how you can't get flavored coffee anymore. And he had to suck back 2 Cokes. And he was driving one day and needed a fix, and there was a 7-Eleven. They're like, hey, if I can get coffee, it'll be on the 7 goddamn 11.
Yeah,
Go in,
exactly.
gets his coffee, he's driving, you know, it's something spills in his coffee. Guy goes back into the 7-Eleven. Yeah, it's Maple Nut Crunch. Maple Nut Crunch, okay, asshole. Maple Nut fucking Crunch. I bet you want Phil doesn't, and he goes into that.
Mm-hmm.
And, yeah. I learn a lot of things. But anyways, no, you gotta watch it.
Yeah.
And, so, you know, I think he's definitely, well, another influence of mine. I mean, he's the raunchiest guy out there, but he's also done acting as well, like all the other people that are on here. You know, talking with Rescue Me and Operation Dumbo Door Up, I guess.
Mm.
Yeah, a lot of shows. He was on Loaded Weapon, I guess. And yeah, he was probably one of the funniest guys that I've seen.
Yeah,
And
for sure.
like I said, there's not a lot that I laugh at, but I mean, he's one of them, anyways.
Yeah. For me, I think I'm gonna go to a guy that mentioned earlier, but probably should go a little more in depth about as far as his comedy style, who he is, what he's like, and other stuff like that. He's another one of those guys that is very open about everything, anything, religion, racism, whatever else you want to say. Not afraid to shoot from the hip, not afraid to speak his mind, and I really believe one of the guys, if not the guy, that helped set the standard for African American comedians and African American comedy in general, Richard Pryor.
Yeah. Yeah, man, you are on a coked out ass or whatever, out of your fucking mind, and you set yourself on fire. Jesus Christ, man.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and this guy definitely, you look at him, and you think, well, from where he started back in the 60s, and then it's the same thing with George Carlin, too,
Yes.
and most other comedians. You start off as a clean comedian, and as the decade goes and there's a new generation, you kind of change your attitude and all that other shit, and, you know, it's kind of like, yeah, talk about racism, talk about drugs, and all that other shit. Okay, here's a guy that definitely did all of those things, and
Yeah.
it's kind of crazy how life turned out for him too. You know, drastically changed in the late 80s, and later finding out that he has MS, and, you know, even in a wheelchair, and just not controlling his body as well as he did, smoking cigarettes and cussing like he still did. Yeah, it's just crazy.
Yeah. Indeed,
Yeah.
indeed.
Did movies like Superman 5, The
Yes.
Wiz. I did a few movies with Gene Wilder.
Right, yes.
And yeah, so I can't remember what movie it was, but he was coked out of his fucking mind. And it was crazy, you know, watching his stand up, and it's like, it's very entertaining and stuff, but yeah, definitely one of those comedians that really broke the mold for African American stand up comedy, but also the whole transition to being raunchy
Yeah.
and stuff like that.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Richard Pryor was one of those guys that very open, very honest, very opinionated, and funny as hell. No matter what he said, no matter what he did, he could kill it.
Oh yeah. Yeah, we definitely lost him too soon, but you know, he had suffered a lot through the years, so there it is. You know, you can also get him influencing Dennis Leary and Dave Chappelle and a lot of other comedians, and it's just amazing. There was a special called "I Ain't Dead Yet, Motherfucker,"
Ah.
and a lot of those guys came on and talked about Richard Pryor, and it was a pretty cool special.
Yeah.
So I guess it's my turn. So.
Yep.
Going for a comedian that is pretty cool. His ethnic background is Indian and Scottish. And just a guy that appeared on Just for Laughs. He had his own special. And I don't know how many specials he's had, but Danny Boy.
Ha.
And yeah, he's pretty entertaining as shit. You know, you have him talk about how he was in a hotel and he's like, you know, gets this key. When it's a bed and breakfast, he's like, it gets this key, and it's a big key, goes upstairs. There's no bed.
It's just a mattress on the floor.
And there's a mattress on the floor. And then he goes, when's breakfast? Is that, well, it's between 7 to whatever it was.
Yeah.
He's like, oh good, I get up at 9. So, your bed and you got 2 things you need for a bed and breakfast.
A bed
And
a breakfast. They didn't have either one of these.
And she goes, oh, Mr. Picky.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I've seen Danny Boy myself. Mostly just for laughs. He's very, very good. I actually saw I think it was a Netflix original series, or Netflix original, and it was a stand-up routine he did. He did it very, very well, and yeah, his comedy style is very opinionated, and we'll talk about certain issues, but he manages to keep it relatively clean.
Yeah.
Like, goes dirty, but he's not like mega dirty. Like, he's
No.
not Dennis Leary and friggin' Richard Pryor dirty. He's just that little bit dirty, but I mean, super, super funny. Like, I remember one thing he said is like, you're in Scotland and you're at a bar and you're gonna introduce one person to another and you got like a beer in each hand. You just use a head nod, like, Mike, this is John, this is Mike, or if you got like a beer in each hand and one in the middle, the head, it really helps when you can't like use your hands to point or whatever, just use your head and nod.
Yeah, I go, someone came up to me and said, oh, you're Irish. No, I'm Scottish.
Yeah.
See? This is a Scottish person talking to you. That's the difference. Here's an Irish person. Diddly-dee potatoes!
Yeah.
And it's like, somebody came up to me one day and they're like, we got a stand-up comedy routine in Edinburgh.
Yeah.
And he's like, we need an Irish actor. Like, I'm not Irish. Did you say 5,000? Diddly-dee potatoes!
Yeah.
So, I really enjoy him, man.
There's even one I seen. He was in Africa, I'll say, or something like that. And he's in this room, and the sheets on the bed are tucked in really tightly. So he's got to like shimmy his way down the bed to get under the covers. So he's in bed under the covers, and he looks up and he sees this lizard or gecko or whatever on the ceiling, and he's just staring at it, and then all of a sudden it falls off the ceiling right in his chest. And of course, he's under the cover, so he can't really move that well. So he's trying to blow on it to get it to go away. Yeah.
Yeah, it goes, yeah. And it's just doing this.
Hey, oh, thanks, buddy. I'm enjoying this. This is really hot.
Yeah. But yeah, Danny Boy is pretty cool, and I'd like to see more of him, but he hasn't been on recently.
Yeah, he hasn't done anything recently as far as comedy is concerned. So my next one is gonna be a guy that I know a little bit about, but I don't really know a whole lot about. I've seen some of the things he's done work-wise, and like I just put him on the list as because he's just a really good comedian and really funny, and he can do pretty much anything. And maybe Matt can help fill in a little more details about this guy, John Belushi.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, there's a guy that definitely was access to no end.
Mm.
You know, you look at someone like... I mean, Saturday Night Live back then, you know, it was all about the drugs. And,
Yes.
you know, I think he took it a little bit more to the extreme. And, you know, has done a lot of famous movies like Animal House and The Blues Brothers with Dan Aykroyd, which was actually a Saturday Night Live thing.
Yeah.
You know, he's done a lot of cool shit, you know. It's just one of those things where it's too bad that he had a limited time. You know,
Indeed.
passing away in '84. Well, my birth year, I guess. And no, he died in '82, and
Yeah.
it's a speedball. You know, the guy just had no off button,
Nope.
and
Not in the least.
it's kind of a sad thing too, because
Yeah.
that's exactly what happened to Chris Farley.
Oh, yeah.
And Chris Farley idolized John Belushi.
Mm.
And, you know, John Belushi, again, another one of those actors that, you know, living on for Jim Belushi,
Yes.
his brother.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, there's another guy that definitely was one of the funniest guys, did a interesting Joe Cocker,
Mm-hmm.
which I didn't think Joe Cocker was like that, but okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, like another guy that definitely was, it's some cast members say a big teddy bear. So
Yeah.
it's a shame that he died way too soon, but it's, you know, yeah, he lives on through his movies, and, you know, I got the first 3 seasons of Saturday Night Live, so, you know, there it is.
Well, I don't really have a whole lot to add to that, so.
Okay. So there's another comedian that I'm not sure how long he was doing this for, but I've seen him a few years ago, and always just for laughs. He has his own YouTube channel, Pete Zedlacker,
Well, yeah.
and also a fellow metalhead. It's pretty cool to see this guy. Definitely, you know, it's always different material and stuff, but like he's doing impressions of like a goose and and Arnold and all that other stuff. Talks about his Austrian heritage, and yeah, he was talking about, you know, his girlfriend at the time was Catholic, and they telling him all about it, and went to Easter Mass with her, just trying to follow along.
Yeah.
He's like, the priest comes by with the holy water, and I can't resist. He goes, like, throws it at him. He's like, it's like, well, I guess it's staying on Sundays now.
Yeah. Yeah, that's one of the ones I remember in this church, and it's like, you gotta stand up, sit down, sing songs, yell jingles back and forth, and all this other stuff. Like, man, no wonder I seen people out in the parking lot stressing earlier.
It's Easter Sunday. This guy goes on and on
and on and on, and then at the end, yeah, the priest is walking by with the bucket of holy water and blessing people with holy water, and of course he sees and like, what's he doing? And she goes, oh, he's blessing everybody with holy water, and of course, being the comedian, couldn't resist himself.
Yeah.
Isa, tuda, fuda, dida, whatever.
Yeah.
Trying to be like a demonic, like, exorcism thing, and like, whoa, that didn't go over very well.
Yep. And I grew up Catholic, and it's pretty accurate.
Yeah.
Which, yeah, that's why I left early.
Yep.
Anyways.
So next for me is a guy that I started watching, I don't know how long ago, maybe 5 years ago, something like that. And I didn't really know too much about him, but the first time I saw him, I thought, man, this guy is so good. He's really, really funny. He's not afraid to talk about different subjects, and the characters that he has are very specific to certain profiles of people. And he's done a Christmas special, and he did one where he traveled to different parts of the world and stuff like that, and I really like him. And I don't know about Matt, Jeff Dunham.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I hate to say it, but I'm not really a fan. It's cool that I don't know, I just don't think he's that funny, but,
Yeah.
I mean, everybody's different.
I mean, yes, there is the fact that he is a ventriloquist, but he does it so well, and it's just funny. Like, I mean, he's got Walter, who is this kind of grumpy old man.
Yeah.
And then he's got Bo-J, who's just like trailer park trash, basically. And then he's got Ahmed, the Dare Terrorist, who is just this skeleton.
I kill you!
Silence! I kill you!
Yeah.
And he's got, oh, what the heck is that one called? No. He's got one that's
Oh,
like
yeah, the black guy.
the pimp.
Yeah.
And then, of course, you got this furry, purple, crazy,
yeah.
creep-looking thing, Peanut.
Yeah, and the first stand-up I saw of him was probably in the early 90s, and that's when he brought out Peanut. And then there's another stand-up where he got Jose the Jalapeno.
Jose Jalapeno on a
on a
stick.
stick.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, I'm not a big fan of Jeff, but yeah, it is what it is. It's kind of funny, but it's also like, yeah, not really one of my favorites, but
Yeah.
whatever, it's all good.
Yeah.
But anyways, so for me, now we're gonna go on to, well, we're gonna go way, way back. And this guy, I don't know too much about him, but I saw little bits and pieces of the stuff he used to do on shows back in the 50s. Sid Caesar. Don't know too much about him, but yeah, he had his own show. And yeah, I don't get the humor. See, different decades, it's always different humor. So it's like, you probably won't get the humor back then.
Yeah.
And stuff, like, probably people that were our age now, back then. That's complicated.
Yeah.
What I do remember, though, is a few years before he died, he did an appearance on Whose Line Is It Anyway?
Mm.
And it was like a foreign film dub or something with Drew Carey, and he was taking Drew to school. This guy knew, I don't know how many languages, but he knew a shit ton.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know too much about him, but
Neither do I.
definitely. Well, I just wanted to pick somebody from that era, I guess.
Yeah.
And he's definitely. Well, I don't even know if I would call it grades, but I guess he was. So there it is.
Next for me is a guy that I seen quite a few years ago kind of do stand up on his own, and he's very funny, and he bases his comedy solely around like people he can relate to the most, and probably people that are the most relatable, and he still does comedy to this day. And although I haven't seen him do stand up in a little while, but definitely very, very funny. And I'll preference it by saying this: if you mow your lawn and you find a car underneath it, you might be a redneck.
Oh yeah, Jeff Foxworthy.
Jeff Foxworthy.
That's funny. I was actually watching. It was that audio thing, but it was Jeff back in '89, and I
You
never,
were born.
yeah, exactly. But I never thought that this guy would be vulgar. And there's some words that I never expected him to use, because his comedy, like, he's not dirty, but he's like, it's, I don't know, it's a bit of both, but he's never used fuck or shit or anything like that.
Like, he never really swears, but there's certain things in his comedy routine that are rather out there.
Right, yeah. I don't know, I mean, this one of those guys that had his own show, Blue Collar Comedy, and
Blue Collar TV.
Guy from Alabama marrying, I think it's Alabama.
Yeah, he's from Alabama.
He married someone from Louisiana, so it's real southern. Talks about the whole family, It's an interesting stand-up routine, I think it is entertaining, listening to him talk about his family.
Yeah.
When they were kids, and talking about the chemistry set that he had. It was like, John Paul phoned him so red in my eye. So I'll tell you kids to stop. Go play with the word bird and kid.
Yeah. How could you play with a thing? You get this thing in a box that heats up to 5,000 degrees.
You go play with the long darts.
Well, hell, I remember when we were kids and there wasn't any instructions. We just take them out of the box and start throwing them up in the air.
Yeah.
Hope the hell they didn't get one in the top of the head.
Yeah.
But his redneck jokes are... Mwah.
Yeah. Well, I had watching him. I didn't see a lot of those episodes, but he did a few shows, and one in the '90s, a Jeff Foxworthy show.
Yes.
I know he's done Are You Smarter Than a Fifth Grader?
Right.
Just funny as Southern. Anyways. Well, yeah, I don't find him too funny, but yeah, I do enjoy the stories that he tells when he's on stage. So, I mean, that's pretty cool. So, this is part one of our, I guess I will do another one. But yeah, a part one of this episode, and we'll be back with part two.